SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, welcome back to another #SpeakEasy Podcast episode. I'm excited about this one because I'm just going to be honest, as the introvert, negotiations were never really my thing. And this is coming from somebody who likes CSI and Criminal Minds. So there's a love of negotiations when watching it on a show. But for me personally in business, man, it's been an Achilles heel for several different reasons. But being aggressive was one of the things, the terms that I kind of always put in alignment when it came to negotiations. And guess what? That's not really the case. So I'm excited about this particular conversation with my guest for today, Cindy. Hello, Cindy.
Hi there, Altovise. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And so we're going to get listen, I'm going to be transparent. We're going to get all into this because I think as entrepreneurs in those first 5 years, there is a fear of negotiating things because we feel like we don't know enough. We're not good enough. And so I know that this is going to spark some things for a couple people. It's going to inspire some people and kind of shake some people up, but it's a needed conversation. With that being said, Cindy, let the studio audience know a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to dive into today's topic.
You betcha. No, and thanks for having me. I think you're not alone at all, Altovise. I mean, this is why I feel so passionately about this subject. I've been an attorney for 30 years, and I'm the founder of Women on Purpose. And I created a program called The Art of Feminine Negotiation because, for 30 years as an attorney, I bought into that myth that negotiation is all about the toughness, right? It's about the bark and the bite. And there's a high cost that comes with that. My clients called me the Barracuda for years, and they meant it as a compliment. And I'm now embarrassed to say I wore it like a badge of honor because I bought into that myth that if I was going to have my voice heard, if I was going to be successful, I had to show up with that competitive energy. And I think that's why there's a huge cost to women in particular, because I find women end up falling in one of two camps when it comes to negotiation. They either step back going either because they're introverted or because they don't like the idea of conflict, or they don't want competition or to be seen as the big B, right? So we end up shying away from it to our detriment. Or we have the other end, which I had fallen into, where you overcompensate and bring that energy. And there's a real cost. It starts affecting your professional relationships, then your personal relationships, and ultimately your sense of self. So that's what got me so passionate about this subject.
And I think that's another reason why this is going to be such a great conversation, because we're coming from both ends of the spectrum. And so we can kind of give insight from both experiences. And I know for me, it was that shying away from conflict and not really wanting to poke the bear. Not wanting to poke the bear. But I found myself lacking in many areas because that fear of negotiating meant that I wasn't charging or asking for my worth. I wasn't making other people value my time. And I always was behind the 8 ball because whereas I should have had some other things in place and, positioned myself in certain ways, I couldn't do that because I was scared to ask.
Yeah. And you just hit the nail on the head. I was going to say, women don't ask for what we want. And it's staggering the stats. Like, when people are given a job offer with a starting salary, do you know that 62% of men will ask for more money as compared to only 7% of women? That is a massive digression. And the thing that's so interesting about it is when I had my epiphany, right? When I recognized the cost personally to showing up and buying into that myth, I started really digging and looking at what does make the most effective negotiators. And the thing that's so surprising, and I think it's going to be a pleasant surprise for your audience, 5 out of 6 of the traits that make the most effective negotiators are traits that people would consider to be feminine. These are skills that women are doing every day in a myriad of ways, but not thinking of them as negotiation. And in fact, probably thinking of them as a liability, when in fact, they're your secret weapons. So do you want me to go through what those traits are quick, or?
Most definitely, yes. Okay. I want to hear these traits.
Yeah, so if you pick the 6 traits that most commonly, like in any of the research on what makes the most effective negotiators, you'll see assertiveness, which I'll come back to in a sec, rapport building, empathy, flexibility, intuition, and trust. So a simple mnemonic for your listeners and your viewers, just think are fit. You are fit to be a great negotiator. AREFIT. So rapport building, empathy, flexibility, intuition, and trust. In study after study, when people are asked to define whether they see those as masculine or feminine traits, they're considered feminine traits, right? And even assertiveness, which people would say is the masculine of those 6 traits, that's because they confuse assertive with aggressive, and they're not the same thing. Being assertive just means coming from a place of confidence, which comes from knowledge, which comes from preparation. So I want to really encourage everybody to reframe this idea about negotiation being all about conflict and toughness, because the opposite is true. For the introverts out there, for the women who don't love conflict, and I'm saying women, it applies for women and men, frankly. This isn't necessarily a gender-based thing, because we all have masculine and feminine, but you know what, if you show up in that place where you're conscious and intentional about building rapport, bringing empathy, putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, trusting your intuition, building that trust, you are going to do better as a negotiator. You're going to up level what you're able to get. So I want you to start seeing those skills as your secret weapon, not as a liability that you need to be shoved tampering down, right?
I love that. It's in my mind, I'm going, yeah, I think I could work for the FBI now.
It's funny. I love that you mentioned about the bear, poking the bear, because one of the tips that I give, especially for the people who fall on the side where they tend to shy away from negotiating, I call it the mama bear tip. So it's ironic you said about poking the bear, because, everybody thinks about that mama bear being able to really be ferociously defending her cub, right? So we all have that little bear cub inside us. We all still have that little girl or that little boy with all our little girl hurts that we carry. So if you find it hard to advocate for yourself, one little quick, sort of hack for a mindset shift, just invoke the mama bear for your own bear cub yourself, right? To be able to advocate for the bear cub in you when you're coming forward. And I think that's one way that I find women can step to the plate a little more effectively, right?
Oh, I love that tip. Because when we think about that as the mama bear, we will fight for our family. We will fight for everybody around us.
Yeah.
So tapping into that makes a whole lot of sense to be able to fight for ourselves as well.
Yeah. And again, doing it though from a place where you don't feel you need to come from that masculine energy, but coming from a place of truly where you're looking to understand and meet the needs of the other. Because we think that the person who's talking the loudest and the longest in a negotiation is the person who's winning because they're controlling the negotiation. And the opposite is true, because that just shows ego, and ego is the kiss of death in negotiations. Where we have a real advantage, if you can sit back and actively listen. And I call it the 5 W's is another little secret tip. And again, I find that women are equipped to do this really effectively when they trust in it and just step into this. So just think who, what, where, when, why. So anytime you're about to negotiate, and let me just take a second to say, all of life is a negotiation, right? We forget this isn't just for business deals, whether you're negotiating with your intimate partner or your kids, they're all a form of negotiation. Heck, negotiating your own mindset. Every day we get up, we have the chance to negotiate how we want to show up that day. But really bring those 5 W's with intention. Who do I want to show up as in this negotiation or discussion? Who is the other side going to see me as? Who should be involved in this discussion to help elevate or make it easier for me? So just spending even a few minutes to think about that can be a game changer in your negotiation. And then think about the what. What do I want? What do I really want, right? What is the other side going to expect? Go deep into some of those. What are some great questions I can ask to spark this? And then the where. Where should it, with your intimate partner, some negotiations should take place in the bedroom and other ones should never take place in the bedroom, right? You want to have those. Maybe a discussion's better on a firm retreat or at the water cooler. So just really thinking about that where with intention will help you get better results and more creative solutions and better buy-in. Same with the when. As kids, we knew intuitively not to ask our parents for something if they were in a really bad mood, right? And we forget that as adults. Timing is so important. And the final being that why. Any discussion you're going to have, really dig deep. What's my deep why driving this? Even if it's about money, what's really behind it? Because it's almost never just about the money, right? What's really motivating me and what's motivating the other side? Powerful, simple little tools to make you more effective in showing up.
Now, I love that all of this also it ties into your experience. And so as a lawyer that has been specializing in social justice law over a long period of time, yeah. But you don't look a day over 21. So.
Oh, I love you. I knew I liked you.
So over this long period of time, what is one moment that is like kind of seared in your mind where you really had to tap into that feminine negotiation and say, okay, let me step back, and rethink this?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Always. I wish I had been more intentional about this at the beginning of my practice, right? But I mean, one example that jumps to mind, there was a case, and this was when I was still in the early phases of really having my epiphany about this. And just exactly what you said, when I literally had to stop myself mid-negotiation, take a step back, take a deep breath, and really ground myself in how do you want to show up here and what's the most effective way? Because we were battling, it was a case with the trade union and employer. I was representing the trade union. And it seems like a simple issue, but super important, where for the client, they didn't want the employer to be able to meet with or question their bargaining unit members without representation. And the employer was like, absolutely not. We have to be able to question our own employees without having to worry about getting representation there. So both parties were so locked into their position about it. And it was obvious there wasn't going to be a deal, and tempers were escalating and everybody's getting more dug in. And all of a sudden I took a step back and thought, okay, let's come from that place, Cindy, practice what you preach here, right? Get that empathy, find that deep why, what's really motivating the other side, and let's build that rapport building and empathy and get flexible here and come up with a solution. And ended up being able to come up with a solution where, okay, fine. What if the employer can come and interview our people anytime they want, but if they choose to do that, they can never issue any discipline against any of our members, no matter what they find. So it's their choice. And sure enough, the employer was so dug in, so attached to their result as the win being that they got to question those members whenever they wanted, that they actually went for that deal, which was a way better solution for my client than we could have hoped to get, even if we'd gone ahead and litigated. Because now all of their members basically got a get out of jail free card anytime an employer approached them without representation, right? But I think for your listeners as well, the time you really want to ground yourself is when you're dealing with a bully. And I got to tell you, Altovise is 30 years as an attorney in a male-dominated niche within a male-dominated industry. And I'm sure for a lot of your listeners, there are plenty of times I had people try and get in my face, try and intimidate me, try and bully me. And our normal reaction is to get reactive, right? In that situation, that fight, flight, or freeze. So, the one camp would just sort of cower away and end up not getting what they want. On the other side, they get really reactive and you'd be locking horns. And this is where I love this RFIT model. If you can just take that step back and take a breath, and I've used this effectively as well, just call them on their conduct. Look shocked, right? Don't get reactive, because again, that's that ego coming into place, but be able to go, wow, where's this coming from? You're being really aggressive. Just call the behavior out for whatever it is, kind of look shocked, reset the room, if you will. And it can be a really powerful tool to equalize that playing field when you got somebody trying to bully. And then coming from that place again of empathy, what's really driving this? Is it insecurity? Is it a desire for status on their side? And how can I meet that? How can I use that knowledge to be able to come and let them think this is their idea? So not backing down, being prepared to stand. And that's where that assertiveness comes. Once you've done these simple preparations, whether it's those 5 W's or thinking about that R-FIT model with intention, that gives you a little bit more confidence to ground. So then you can stand your ground and stand in that place of absolute confidence and assertiveness. You don't have to be yelling or beating your chest, just be able to ask for what you want. And I've used it at hotels, something simple when you show up and they don't have your room. I can't think of a time when they say, I'm sorry, Ms. Watson, I don't know what you want us to do. We just don't have a king size bed in the entire hotel. I know that's what you booked, but we don't have one. And I would just smile, not get a grit, and just say, I understand things are great. Build that rapport. I'm sorry. I know you guys are really busy. I know this must be challenging with people with their needs, but I just don't accept that. I need to get what I booked. I'm sorry, we don't have room. Well, then let me speak to your manager, or let me speak to. Not once have I had them not be able to miraculously suddenly find the room that I booked, right? So just simple things like that can make a difference.
And a lot of times we have to understand too, when it comes to negotiations, unfortunately, we're negotiating for the things that are already due us. Like, we're negotiating for things that are part of what we purchased or what we signed on for, or, and so we have to look at it as, okay, first and foremost, what was the bare minimum?
Yeah.
What was the bare minimum when we went into this? And then am I negotiating for something above that? Or am I just negotiating for the bare minimum? That, I think, in this journey has been an eye opener for me, because a lot of times I realized I was only asking for what I was already supposed to get.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I love that. It's so true. And again, as women, because when you think about it, we're so conditioned to be the caregivers and the nurturers, right? To be, and almost to be the martyrs, right? We need to be the super mom and the super whatever, and super gentle and super generous, and asking for something for ourselves we see as indulgent. So I really push it, certainly in my mastermind classes and when I'm working with clients. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's one of the big mindset things that we need to get over first, getting over that mindset. Like, I have my clients prepare what I call a brag list, right? Like, list 25 things you love about yourself, 25 things that you're proud of, and start that as your brag list and keep adding to it. So when you come from that place of self-doubt where we make ourselves smaller, step into the full force of your power, that feminine energy, in a way that's authentic you, to be able to ask for and get what you want, right? And know what your bottom line is. And don't, like, a lot of my clients go in and they're asked what they want in negotiating for a new job, and they give what they think is the bare minimum that they're going to have, when there was so much left on the table that they could have asked for more, right? And if you do it right, if you use that kind of R-FIT, that feminine model, you can ask way up here. You can always pull it back if you want, but once you stay down here and you put your bottom line way lower than what you deserve or entitled to, then you're not going to be able to get up here. So get conditioned to go for the no, I call it. Instead of being worried about, because we carry a lot of fear, right? As women, fear of rejection, fear of failure, even fear of success, I think, Altovise, because we've been so conditioned, we end up self-sabotaging. Have you ever had that where, you're going along great and you're getting some traction, and all of a sudden we find ways to self-sabotage and hold ourselves back? So,
oh yeah.
So really step into owning your value, right? I deserve this. And that comes back to practicing, recognizing those things that you can love about yourself and owning it, but also not being afraid of the no. Like, I'll often do an exercise with my clients if they're in sales, for example. Instead of thinking you need to make 10 sales this week, figure if only 1 in 10 people are likely to bite, that means you need to have 100 contacts. So put in your mind, I'm going for 100 no's. So it takes the sting out of it, right? Because then you go in and you can show up more relaxed and authentic, because there isn't that pressure to have to get the yes and see it as a rejection, right? Go for the no. See the no as a massive success and an opportunity to figure out how to do it better, right? What can I learn? What little nugget can I take from this?
I love this. This episode has been absolutely amazing. I hope you guys were taking notes. If not, go ahead, press that pause button, press the rewind button, so that way you can listen to it again and take some notes. Definitely some gems were dropped all throughout this episode that can help you to be a better negotiator and understand just where you're coming from. But with that being said as well, Cindy, let them know how they can reach out to you for more information and where they can find you online.
Beautiful. And thanks so much for having me, Altovise. I think it's such an important subject. So again, if you want lots of free resources available on some of the stuff I've talked about, just go to womenonpurpose.ca. So that's women plural, womenonpurpose.ca. That's my website. 3 free ebooks you can grab right off of there, right out of the gate, or check me out on Clubhouse. I've got a new club there called Negotiation and Persuasion, as I like to call it, instead of persuasion. So just check me out and follow me on Clubhouse, and there'll be lots of free twice a week. We're going to be dropping some conversations about negotiations. So there are 2 great ways to reach out to me.
I love it. Guys, this is all about you because we want to see you elevate in life and in business. So with that being said, let us know how this episode resonated with you by either leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform or come join the conversation, bit.ly/World Voice Community. We want to hear from you. Guys, it's been a great episode. And man, I'm going to go back and listen to it again. I know I am. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys. This is your host, Altovise, your voice manager. And until next time, don't forget to press it out. See ya.